love this beautiful song. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. If you know it, sing along with me. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I'm stronger every moment, every day. My mind is willing and my heart is open wide. I trust my instincts and let spirit be my guide. I vow to live a life that's real and pure and free as I continue walking in this mystery. There may be walls, there may be roadblocks in my way, but I can choose to take a higher path each day. And now I know that what I thought was safe and sound was only habit and regret that held me down. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I'm stronger every moment, every day. And I am stronger every moment, every day.
Thank you so much, Deidrey. I love that song too. Karen Drucker. So beautiful. So on his very first parachute jump, Private Jones couldn't get his canopy to deploy. Free falling, out of control, that he saw, to his astonishment, a woman rocketing toward him from below. Know anything about parachutes, he asked. Sorry, she shouted back. Know anything about gas grills? I'm not sure how more knowledge would have helped these two, are you? From a very young age, most of us were taught religious dogma. Beliefs deemed the truth. As a Catholic child, I was taught the Catechism, a book in which were listed questions about God and the answers to these questions. My instructions were to memorize the book, and when I could recite them flawlessly, I would be ready to receive my first Holy Communion. A few years later, there came a thicker catechism with more complex spiritual questions, but much the same rather simple answers. Again, I was instructed to memorize the manual in preparation for my confirmation. Once confirmed, amidst much pomp and splendor, I was deemed ready to face the world as a good Catholic. Your path might not have been as structured as mine, but I guarantee if you were raised by religious parents, answers were planted in your brain too. Thank goodness unity's different, right? Well, sort of. When we first arrived, dogma weary, we were assured that we would find none of that. Then we were promptly asked to recite the 5 foundational principles, over and over again until they were firmly planted in our minds. These were deemed truth principles. So, okay, maybe there was just a teeny weeny bit of hypocrisy there, well-meaning as it may be. But we're all willing participants to some degree. Be honest now. Isn't there some part of you that is desperate to be sure about something? Don't we long to nail something down in our minds, call it truth, and not have to wrangle with it again? I understand, and I certainly identify, but sorry, today is not going to be one of those answer days. I'm grateful for my Catholic heritage. Our early religious training served us well at one time. It took us as far as it could. But as we experienced the ups and downs of life, our questions became more complicated, and we found those one-size-fit-all answers inadequate. We needed something more. Unity principles picked up where our childhood beliefs left off and guided us to much more responsible and abundant living. Yet, there's more. There must be, because the evolution of consciousness is continuous. From the perspective of spiral dynamics, unity resides at level green, or community consciousness, the highest level in Tier 1. Yet, there's more. The next step is a leap into Tier 2, yellow, or integrative consciousness. It's important to remember that as our spiritual evolution progresses, we take with us the wisdom from the previous levels. The principle in a nutshell is called transcend and include. Thus, we don't throw away our early training. We carry the nuggets of wisdom with us. But hopefully, as much as we love and appreciate unity, we are not going around believing we have the one and only absolute truth. Unity was never meant to be another fundamentalist denomination. The unity principles can take us a long way, though. There is space for tremendous growth within each of them. For example, take Principle 1. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life. That power is God, and its nature is absolute, unchanging good. This one rocked my world, didn't it you? Right from the get-go, we were called to a more expanded consciousness. Only one presence and power? What happened to Satan? Those of us who have had the luxury of believing that his or her bad behavior was caused by the devil, or who have needed to pin down a reason for all the evil in the world, have a conflict on our hands. 40 years ago, or more, I think, I took my kids to see the original Star Wars movie. Some of you may remember the scene when Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker are balanced on a narrow girder, fighting a duel to the death. I remember to this day thinking, this is how it is with God and the devil. God is Luke Skywalker, and he's in constant battle with Darth Vader for the salvation of our souls. I could feel that battle of good and evil even within me. My hope, and the hope of the world, I thought, was that Luke would ultimately win the battle. A lot of people have not grown out of this God versus Satan mentality. We wonder how they can continue to cling to such childish beliefs. Yet it's really not that hard to understand the appeal. God, the protector, standing between us and the big, bad, dangerous world. Scholar Paul Smith, in his fabulous book, Integral Christianity, states that more than 60% of the world's religious people still hold this belief. My youngest grandson went to a Christian preschool where he learned this view. Being a thoughtful sort of kid, he always had lots of questions about God. This conversation, when he was around 9, was so meaningful to me that I wrote about it at the time. It started when he said, "Grandma, they say God loves me, but I'm not sure he does." "Why, Michael?" I asked. "Did something happen?" "Well," he said, "if God loved me, he would take care of me, but sometimes he doesn't. The other day, I was riding my bike down the street, and a big dog ran out of his yard and bit me hard on the leg. God didn't protect me from that dog, and now I'm afraid to go out on my bike. Grandma, do you think the devil made that dog bite me?" "No, sweetie," I said. "There's no such thing as the devil." Pause. I guess I shouldn't have ridden down that street. If I hadn't, the dog wouldn't have bitten me. "But could you have known not to go that way?" I asked. "I don't know," he said quietly. Another pause. "Well then," he said, "I think maybe that was just a very, very bad dog." "Really?" I asked. Just a moment. "Really?" I asked. "Was it the dog's fault?" "Well," he said, "the dog was supposed to guard his house, but I wasn't going to do anything bad to his house." "But did the dog know that?" I asked Michael. Maybe the dog's mind was not able to understand this. Maybe the dog was just afraid and just did the only thing he knew how to do. Which came a longer pause. "Well then," he said, "I think it was the person's fault who lives in that house. They're the ones who left the gate open. That dog could not have bitten me if they had closed the gate like they were supposed to." And I asked, "Do you think you have ever forgotten to close that gate?" "No," he said with certainty. "So," I said, "you've never forgotten to do something you were supposed to do?" "Well, yes, take out the trash," he said. "Was that your fault?" "Not really. I just forgot." "Okay, so maybe the dog's owner just forgot to close the gate. Maybe we can't blame him either." So it wasn't Michael's fault, the devil's fault, the dog's, or the dog owner's. Who else is there to blame? Only God, right? God didn't protect me. Now I can't ever be sure he will, and I'm afraid to go out on my bike. Even at the tender age of 9, Michael's concept of a God who would keep all harm away from him was dying. It was painful for him and painful to witness. It was hard to see his childlike innocence fading. My greatest wish was that I could make him feel safe again. Our conversation continued, and I offered a new idea of God. Maybe God does not keep us from ever getting hurt, but instead, maybe God is the love that heals us when we do get hurt. Maybe God can heal your fear so that you can go out on your bike again. After all, God has already healed up the dog bite. I could see Michael was needing to chew on this idea, and so our conversation drew to a close. So do you see why anyone might want to hold on to a concept of God that is clearly not logical? It satisfied Michael's need to feel safe, that is, until it didn't. Until a life event caused the whole concept to fall apart. Now what? No devil to blame, no person to blame, not even himself. No Luke Skywalker God out there to keep all the bad things away. Now Michael has to come to terms with his fear and find a bigger God. It is a journey that would last his whole life. Today, Michael's a college student with a major in philosophy. He still has a lot of questions about God. So if God is not a powerful superhuman whose job it is to ward off evil and fix the things that evil causes, then who or what is it? Some have come to the logical conclusion that God doesn't exist at all. The atheistic stage of spiritual growth. Dr. Smith says this is a painful but very important phase. Intelligence has reemerged. We can't buy into our old God fantasies, but we have nothing to put in their place. So for a while, we may decide the whole spiritual thing is a hype and just give it up altogether. For most of us, we can't stay in this place forever because there's just this inner knowing, this inner urge that draws us back into the search for our God. We know in our souls that there must be a creator of all this complexity and grandeur we see around us. We feel a spark of something within ourselves that is greater than our roller coaster emotions, woundedness, and pain. The search is back on, and this is the point where, if we're very, very fortunate, we stumble into a unity church and discover a whole new idea of God. Unity teaches that God is both the source of life and life energy itself. God is not only in all things are made of God. We are breathing God, walking around in God, vibrating with God, and so is every living thing. Every creative, loving thought and action is an expression of God life. Every insight and guiding thought is a gift from divine mind. The devil does not cause bad things to happen. Ignorant people do that. But God is healing energy, always present in the midst. Unity teaches that God is not loving. God is love itself. It teaches that love is more powerful than hate, that good will ultimately prevail over evil. I remember like it was yesterday, the day I adopted this philosophy as a guide for my life. To be honest, I knew it was only one way to see things, but it was a way that opened the door to a much more satisfying life, and so I consciously chose it as my own. It was the most important decision I have ever made. Yet, these days, I sometimes find it hard to hold on to my belief. Where is God in the midst of all the destructiveness and violence around us? Where is God when we exploit and destroy our beloved Mother Earth? Where is God when trusted leaders strip away the self-evident truth that are the very foundation of the democracy we love? And where is God in the so-called Christians who are so ready to kill and destroy? What has happened to my faith? Don't I sound like that 9-year-old Michael trying to figure out why the dog bit him? After all these years in unity, shouldn't I be stronger and more peaceful than that? Surely I can't fix what's wrong with the world. Why, I can't even seem to fix my own thinking or restore my own emotional balance some days. Out of this confusion came a very deep human cry. What is wrong with me? That very week, we started the class studying Robert Brummett's Finding Yourself in Transition. It's helping us to understand the profound challenge of great change. Last Wednesday, we worked with the chapter on endings. People shared some of their stories of loss and how they were changed by the experience. It was very touching, and we grew closer to one another, listening to one another. In the book, Brummett says that all change begins with an ending. He says that a person goes through 4 stages as he or she struggles with a major ending: detachment, disidentification, disengagement, and disorientation. His description of detachment perfectly mirrors my experience. He writes, "Our sense of reality is challenged. Our values are turned upside down. Our purpose for living seems unclear. Disenchantment is feeling as if the bottom has fallen out of our life." Yes, clearly I'm not unique. Then it came to me to check out a daily reader I haven't picked up in months. Sheldon Kopp's wonderful little book called Blues Ain't Nothing But a Good Soul Feeling Bad. And on August 12th, it said this: human beings cannot ever become perfect. Evil can never be eliminated. We suffer, seek explanations, some sort of certainty, some clarity. We want the face of the enemy to be clear at last, and for the good guys to win once and for all. We long for a secure place in a world that makes sense. When these dreams are dashed, we experience a loss of innocence that can never be restored. This experience is essential for spiritual growth. Wow, now that added a missing piece. And finally, there was my beloved Mark Nepo to tie it all together in the Book of Awakening. For us, the greatest moment is the moment of holding nothing back, of giving our all to whatever situation is before us. For just as pain in the body signals other cells to flood to the injured area, our honest experiences, fully lived and fully and passionately lived, calls other lives to our aid. We flow to each other's aid, often without knowing where we are headed. Mysteriously, life heals itself that way. Not 2 hours after reading that, I received a call from a new friend saying how much she enjoyed getting to know me. And then soon after that, an email arrived from a longtime friend offering beautiful insight into the depth of her struggle, which sounded an awful lot like mine. It's hard to overstate how much comfort I found in knowing I was not alone, that what I was going through was somehow important, that it was taking me somewhere. I'm telling you all this because I now think I viscerally understand something that I'd all but forgotten, and I want to share it with you. That something is the miraculous power of willingness. Turns out, my heartfelt cry, "What's wrong with me?" was a prayer. And not just any sort of prayer, but a prayer of surrender. Out of answers and hope of finding them, I was left only with raw, authentic feeling. At that moment, God life found an opening in me, an opening called willingness, and immediately began pouring out healing gifts, writings, friends, comfort, insight. Willingness is a simple word. We think we understand it, but it is a profound quality of the soul. Willingness has something to do with coming to the end of our ability to fix what's wrong or think our way out of our feelings. It has something to do with accepting that no matter how smart we are or how much we study, we will never understand the why of things. Nor will we ever completely comprehend God or the ways of God. But you know what? Willingness says that's okay, because God life understands us, hears our pleas, knows what we need. God life does not push its way through our resistance, self-reliance, anger, and rebelliousness. It knows we can't hear, can't even listen with all that going on. No, God life waits patiently for that moment of willingness when we're feeling lost, standing on groundless ground, out of answers, even out of prayers. That moment when, facing all the craziness of this world out there, we finally say, okay, that's the way it is. All I want to know now is what life-affirming step to take next. They say there are no atheists in foxholes. Well, folks, we're in a foxhole together. We can't see our way out. We can't figure it out. So we best come to each other and each other's aid the best we can, and tell the truth about how we feel, and cry together and laugh together and work and play together. Because here's the thing. Our misery won't change this world, but our peace and happiness just might change at least a little corner of it. God bless you all. I love you. Now Deidrey will prepare us for meditation.
What if a prayer is not a plea, a desperate call with tears that fall on bended knee, but breathing out and breathing in lives and breathes, my trusted friend. My life is a prayer that God is praying. My thoughts are words that God is saying. My laughter is the sound of angels praying. My life is a prayer that God is praying. What if today I had the chance to move and sway? God leads the way in my life's dance. What if I knew without a doubt, no need to sway, God is here right in without. My life is a prayer that God is praying. My thoughts are words that God is saying. My laughter is the sound of angels playing. My life is a prayer that God is praying. My life is a prayer that God is
Hmm. When we tell the truth about our feelings, we're praying. And our prayer connects us to all life. Just as sunlight floods a room when the curtains are drawn back, light pours into our hearts when we open ourselves to it. We instinctively know what is ours to do and what is not. And once we've done our best, we give the rest to God. Now we are free to live in peace and enjoy every moment of our lives. The world needs our peace, happiness, and love. Right here, right now, today, we can begin our journey to freedom. We make a beginning with a simple prayer of denial and affirmation. I invite you to repeat after me. Fear has no power over me. I am one with God life, and all is well. Fear has no power over me. I am one with God life, and all is well. Let's just rest in this energy for a moment or two. Fear has no power over me. I am one with God life, and all is well. Taking these words into us, breathing them in, light flows into our hearts and minds. Today, we see more clearly and notice that beauty is everywhere. We feel the creative power within us, and we know I do make a difference. Thank you, El Shaddai, God of the mountains. Thank you, Yahweh, God of my heart. Thank you, God life. And so it is. Amen.
My life is a prayer that God is praying. My thoughts are words that God is saying. My laughter is the sound of angels playing. My life is a prayer